Wir lassen uns nicht auseinanderdividieren. Wir alle sind Deutschland.
So let's get started with story one. On Tuesday, a vigil, or Mahnwache, was convened in front of the Brandenburg Gate to remember those who died in the recent terrorist attacks in France. The voice you just heard was the president of Germany, Joachim Gauck, who attended the vigil along with religious leaders and politicians.
Joining us on Skype is Berlin correspondent of Canada's national newspaper The Globe and Mail, Joanna Slater. So, Joanna, why was this Mahnwache, this vigil, organised, and who was involved in making it happen?
This vigil was a response to the deadly attacks in Paris at the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo and at a kosher supermarket. The driving force behind it, the organizers were a variety of Muslim organizations here in Germany, including the Central Council of Muslims and groups representing the Turkish community, the Shiite community, and several more. The name of the event was Stand Together, Show Your Face, and it was conceived as a way for German Muslims to unequivocally condemn what happened and to demonstrate their solidarity with France. It was also very clearly a way for the German federal government to show its support for the country's Muslim community and to communicate that prejudice against that community is unacceptable.
And what happened at the event itself? So who spoke and what was said?
Sure. It began, actually, with verses from the Quran. An imam opened the event by chanting the verses in Arabic. And for me, that was a poignant moment. He was standing in front of the Brandenburg Gate and in front of Chancellor Merkel and President Gauck, the whole federal cabinet in front of 10,000 people. The message couldn't be more clear. Islam belongs here in the heart of the German capital, at the gate that is the ultimate symbol of the country. Prior to the speeches, the politicians and religious leaders laid a wreath at the French embassy, and then there were various speakers, the chairman of the Central Council of Muslims, representatives of the Catholic community, the Jewish community, the mayor of Berlin. The last speaker was President Gauck, and all of the speakers talked about the need to stand together and reinforce Germany's commitment to tolerance and diversity. And President Gauck said, the terrorists want to drive us apart, but they've achieved the opposite, and described extremist Islam as a perversion of religion. It ended with all of the dignitaries in attendance linking arms. Again, another very powerful symbolic gesture.
So would you describe it as a success? I mean, if we look at the reaction afterwards from the press and the public.
I believe it was a success, judging by the coverage that followed it, which was almost entirely positive. It was also a success, I think, in terms of communicating a message. The vigil showed very clearly the position of the German Muslim community faced with these attacks, which is horror and shock and condemnation. And it also telegraphed without any ambiguity the position of the German government. You did have some people carping that it appeared to be hastily put together and that the Muslim community did not appear to have turned out en masse to attend. But again, those were the minority. Judging to the people I spoke to actually at the event after it took place, it also seemed to achieve its desired goal on a kind of individual level. I spoke to two sisters who were born in Berlin to Pakistani immigrant parents, and they said it was very reassuring to see the different religious communities and senior politicians standing together. They said they'd also been heartened by the Chancellor's earlier comments about how Islam is a part of Germany. They said that prior to that statement and to the event, they had been worried about a potential backlash against Muslims, but no longer. And a Jewish man I spoke to at the vigil said something similar, that the event had provided some measure of psychological comfort to see the country united in its response to what happened in Paris.
Now, I know that the government is back in conversation talking about, first of all, how to tackle extremism in the Muslim community in Germany, and also about how to tackle terrorism. So one particular point which is quite controversial is the data retention laws, known in German as Vorratsdatenspeicherung. Heiko Maas, the Justice Minister, said that there is no need for data retention laws. Anton Hofreiter, the leader of the Green Party, said that there is no need for data retention laws, but an increased investment in police. The leader of the SPD, Sigmar Gabriel, has said possibly that they could introduce these laws, which would mean that telephone companies would keep your data on file from what websites you visited, for example, who you've called and when, and so on. But he would like to see an EU solution. And Angela Merkel, the Chancellor and member of and leader of the CDU-CSU union, has said she is for data retention. So what do you think are the areas in particular which are going to be hotly debated over the next few weeks and months in terms of tackling extremism while promoting tolerance, in terms of tackling terrorism, and also perhaps as well taking a look at Pegida, which is they've been involved in this conversation from the sidelines, or they've tried to disrupt the discourse, let's say. So, yes, what do you expect from the next weeks and months?
Let me try to unpack all of those very good and important questions. So starting first with the issue of data and privacy. Obviously, this is one that goes back. This is a debate that has a long history when it comes to combating these threats and where governments draw the line on privacy and on getting information about their citizens. I think you're going to see governments trying to push the line a little bit farther against people who advocate for privacy, whether within Germany or on a European basis. There have been attempts within the European Union to establish, for example, a passenger flight sharing data system, which has been strongly resisted. But I think in the wake of the Paris attacks, that will probably go through. To some of the broader points, I think the challenge that Germany faces is the same one that many countries in Europe face. What will be the ultimate legacy of the Paris attacks? Will they end up strengthening right-wing groups who talk about the danger of immigration with an undercurrent of anti-Muslim prejudice? Or will the attacks somehow cement a consensus in favor of diversity and tolerance? It's too soon to tell. And well before the attacks in Paris, the German government was trying to find the right way to tackle Pegida, the anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim protests taking place in Dresden. While the group has been really unable to spread beyond Dresden and was outnumbered by counter-protesters, most recently that challenge remains. So I think events like the vigil on Tuesday night that forge a consensus, that set a baseline for acceptance and understanding, those are very important, as are ongoing efforts to make people feel like full citizens. These are investments in a shared future. And I also think it's important to remember that when it comes to terrorist attacks by Islamic extremists, Germany has never, thankfully, been truly tested, unlike France, Spain, the UK, and of course the US.
Okay, Joanna Slater, the Berlin correspondent of the Global Mail, thank you for joining us here on This Week in Germany.
Thank you so much for having me.